temas que vamos a estar tocando hoy día es ciberseguridad. Han habido ataques a nivel mundial. Chile no ha escapado tampoco de esta amenaza. Y para hablar de esto tenemos a continuación a Jeff Brown, él es Head of HP Professional Services, que va a presentar las últimas tendencias de ciberseguridad empresarial a nivel mundial. Un aplauso para Jeff, por favor.
Buenos dias. Did this come on? Buenos dias. Unfortunately, that was 50% of my entire Spanish vocabulary. So I'm going to present today in English. My name is Jeff Brown. I lead the worldwide professional services for HP. HP being the printer and personal systems, or PC side of our business. I have three practices within professional services. One is around infrastructure, helping companies strategize, architect, and deliver transformational technologies. The second around analytics and business intelligence, taking the vast amounts of data that we have and turning that into actionable intelligence and automation. And then third is security. And the reason I share each of those three is they're part of an integrated story. I think typically what happens is you'll hear people talk about we're going to transform our workflow or our workspace or our work styles. And oh, by the way, it needs to be secure. I think there's a better way to do that, and that is we're going to create a secure workplace, a secure workflow, and it's an integrated part of the conversation. And as you think about my comments today, think about how important it is to have security as a fundamental part of your planning as you go towards digital transformation. So I'd like to talk about three things very briefly today. What is the threat profile? How is it changing? What do we need to pay attention to? Second is who's behind that? What do the hackers really look like and how do they operate? And then third, give you in a specific example at HP what we're doing to integrate defenses into our products to be able to help fight the attacks from the outside. So let me take a look at the threat landscape first. I'm not going to talk about these. These should all be familiar to most of you. The whole data protection models coming out of Europe, the combinations of cyber and then translating into physical threats like the power grid, transportation systems, even access to your facilities. Patching and application testing continues to be a very hot topic now with the transformation to Windows 10, for example, in the Windows space. There's a deficit of security professionals. This industry and challenge is growing so fast that the talent to keep up with this is still a challenge today. My recruiter tells me that there's at least a 20 to 25% talent pool deficit in security professionals, jobs that aren't being filled. So there's a real need for additional security professionals that presents a gap. And then the whole idea of ongoing employee education. But let me as I talk to all my security professionals at HP and my colleagues, and even if you read some of the trend reports, there's four things that show up in every one of these things. One is IoT and the continued vulnerability presented by IoT. You know, Gartner research says there's 8 million or 8 billion devices attached to the internet today. And by 2020, that will be at least 20 billion units. The issue is that the speed to market or time to market and the capability is significantly ahead of the security associated with it. As part of our device as a service at HP, we now offer vending machines and lockers so that companies can provide accessories, can provide PCs, configure devices. So when we went out, we started working with vendors, and we took the first 6 vending machine manufacturers and did a security audit, penetration test, vulnerability scans. Every one of them failed. We ran into, I won't tell you the vulnerabilities just so in case you wanted to hack them, but every one of them had 3 to 4 major failures, password inconsistencies, or they hadn't changed passwords since they were created. Those types of things that are coming out. So the IoT is great. It's very pervasive, but the security that matches that, the policy, the penetration testing, the vulnerability scans is lagging behind. The second is AI expansion. There's a good news and bad news story here. And the good news, again, in our device as a service, we offer an analytics and proactive management platform. We take all the data that's available to us and analyze it and understand how to proactively use that. I can tell you when your battery is going to fail. I can tell you when your device is overheating or what's causing your blue screens. And I can automate my responses in order to anticipate and interrupt the events so they don't even go to a service desk. So that's a great way to use artificial intelligence in a positive way. I can tell if your antivirus software is on or off, or how often that is changing. On the other side, hackers are looking at that and saying, combining AI with social engineering to be able to say, if I know who you are, where you work, who your friends are, what type of hobbies and what your work style is, I can now design compelling phishing attacks that you don't even recognize as a phishing attack using AI. The third one is blockchain revolution. I won't talk in detail. And there's a level of security with blockchain that is a very interesting technology, typically applied to cryptocurrency today, but very quickly moving into things like logistics and transactions, validated transactions between companies. Problem is, and by design, there's an element of security built into the blockchain model. Hackers love that. That's a challenge. A lot of hackers are looking very specifically at where the money is. That's where they're going to be. Which brings me to my last major trend, the rise of ransomware and organized crimes behind it. Ransomware, as you've seen from some of the recent incidents around WannaCry or NotPetya, has brought it to the forefront. But again, Gartner says there was 500,000 incidences in 2013. That ballooned to 2.5 million in 2015. It continues to grow, 36% growth last year, and we're over 3 to 4 million attacks in ransomware. Where the money is where organized crime will be. Let me share another statistic here. The Europol estimated that the cyber crime is now worth $3 trillion. That exceeds the drug profits of heroin, cocaine, and marijuana combined. The organized crime will go where the money is. In the last year, I used this data breach incident report to illustrate that private criminal organizations are now the #1 most effective penetration agents out in the industry. It used to be the advanced persistent threat, so nation states and people very specifically built to go after data or intellectual property is now being exceeded by organized crime. 78% of attacks come from outside. Half of those are from criminal organizations. So as much as you think of hackers as kind of a backdoor, they're doing it for fun, they're trying to steal some of your data and identity, that's no longer the case. They're going after your pocketbook. They're going after your finances. So who are the people behind these attacks? There's a quote from the 2018 Black Report, and a group went out and interviewed hackers, penetration testers, incident response professionals to be able to say, okay, how does this really work? Do we know who is attacking us? And it's a great quote. Whenever organizations sit down to develop their cybersecurity response plan, one person who isn't at the table, and that's the hacker. As such, we design systems around protecting our data, around insider business executive review. But would your perspective change if you understood how someone is attacking you? I think that's a great quote. I think the opportunity is you can self-silo and look at what you think is important. That may or may not be what the people attacking you are important. So let me give you a couple statistics to back this up. Who are the hackers? I think there's kind of a misconception of the hacker that is a high school or college dropout, is bored, wants to make some mischief. Those people are there for sure. But what's happening, if you look at these charts, 75% of the hacking community has a college degree. 32% of those are advanced degrees. These are not, while there are some neighborhood hackers out there, this is a very highly professional area of expertise. Look at the other one. How long have you been hacking? 34% have been at this for more than 10 years. 20% over 15 years. So this is a very highly skilled professional group of people that are attacking your organizations and companies. And like I said before, I think there's one, everybody kind of assumes it's from the outside. I thought there was an interesting statistic that 14% of these people said at some point they had accessed an employee or organization's critical value data for personal gain. So even on the inside, when they have authentication rights, they're still stealing your data. What do? How do they do it? 6 out of 7 times attackers break into their target, gather and take information out without ever getting caught. Not good odds. If you're going to a casino, you probably wouldn't play those odds, but as this quote says, huge percentage of organizations play them with their critical value every day. How long does it take? What's an attack look like? If you look at this, it's the same what I just said. If I breach the perimeter, identify critical valuable data, and actually take it, look at the numbers here. A lot of times it's an hour or less than 2 or 3 hours. They're in, they've got your data. That's it, it's done, they're gone. Matter of fact, if you look at the second one, once you've been compromised, how often does it take to identify you? Look at the bottom 2 numbers, 77%, rarely if ever am I ever caught. Do they even know that I was in your system? And if they are, and why? I'm using professional tools. I'm not just taking a guess and trying to run down the street with that data. I'm using professional tools to cover my tracks 70% of the time. So it's planned, it's executed, and it's covered. 90% of the respondents say they can cover their tracks after a breach within 30 minutes. This is the part of a security presentation that every security presentation you hear, this is the scare data. This is where you're going, now what am I going to do, right? And again, is it static, this dynamically changing environment that we're working in? I thought these three perspectives are interesting. One is good news and bad news in the first one. How often do you find your tech methodologies are out of date? So I go in and, you know what I tried last week or last month, did it work? Well, the good news is, 40% of it time it doesn't work. So maybe there are some technologies that are kind of keeping up with the changes, able to protect companies against and organizations against some of those attacks. But look at the bottom, 40% of the time, people are using the same attack vectors over and over and over, and nobody knows it. How often do I get new tools as a hacker to go after this? Fascinating statistic there. 65% say every time I engage, or at least once a month or so, I have new tools to attack your organization with. If you think hackers aren't keeping up with technology trends and industry capability, think again. The last one, how much time do you spend per week keeping up with security news, trends, and technologies? Not doing your job, just keeping up with what's going on in the world. Look at those middle 2 numbers. 5 to 10 hours a week. What is that? 80% of the respondents said, I spend at least 5 to 10 hours a week just keeping up with the trends. My question to you as an organization or an enterprise, are your people spending that much time keeping up with news, trends, and technologies? Oops. If I were to leave you with any thought today, I would leave it with this first quote. The survey asked if you had a chance to talk to a CEO across the table, what would you tell them? Well, since they're not here and I am, I'll tell you what they said. You'll never be secure. This is a journey, not a destination. Get used to the idea that security is now part of your normal operations. My opening comment saying, as you think about digital transformation, as you consider new technologies, think of security as part of one of your first thoughts. Don't think of it, oh yeah, and I need to make it secure as well. You need a strong combination of people and technology. If it was one or the other, we would have solved it a long time ago. Training your staff, it's all about people. The people side of this element, do they pay attention? Are they aware of the security risks and the implications of breaches? And then last one, assume humans or people will fail at security. So build technology platforms and controls around them to protect themselves from themselves. So let me switch topics for a moment to my third one. Now that you kind of have at least an idea of where the threats are coming from, who are the people behind them, how sophisticated and serious they are, what can you do about it? And as much as I'd like to talk about an overall cyber policy and an approach to cyber resilience and services and capabilities and tools, let me focus on one very specific element. And that's what HP is doing to build security into our devices. This next few sets, I apologize, these look like a very marketing-oriented pitch, and it is. This is what HP uses to present our security story to customers. But what I'd like you to pay attention to is the interwoven story around security and how you can take advantage of all levels, including just the hardware device itself, to be able to protect yourselves. As part of our move forward, rather than just having design for a great-looking device and the thinnest and fastest and all that, we're really changing our design parameters to say design for the way you work, design it secure to work anywhere, and design it to collaborate, not just to consume, but also connect and create content through your device. As you can see, obviously, the reason I share this is the center point of this design effort is around security. We like to say every PC and printer decision is a security decision, and let me explain. We take a design approach that says, consistent with my theme about make it part of your, integrated part of your thinking, security that is built in, not bolted on. There's a tremendous amount of security layers you can add to a device. But what if you started from the very beginning and from the hardware up, design the device with security in mind? Same as you want to do with your policies, same as you want to do with your workflows and everything else. We have this three-step process: protect, detect, and recover. We want to make sure you're protected from the get-go, from all levels of the compute platform, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. You will get hacked at some point. There will be an intrusion or an attack. When that happens, like I said, the statistic I didn't share with you before was once those hackers are in and out and you can't see what they did, the typical time to actually identifying a breach or an attack is over 250 days. It takes months to be able to actually identify that the hack took place. So you want detection capability built into your devices so that if something's going on, you know it right away. And then third, best you could protect, you now identified it, but the last thing you want is to be able to say, well, now my device doesn't work. I have to take it to my IT department. It's going to be re-imaged. It's going to get back 2 days. I lost my data, everything else. How do you drive lower TCO and build in recovery methodologies right into the device? Okay? To my earlier point, and oh, by the way, I will use one of those, it has to be easy for the end user. Otherwise, they're going to find a way around it. If you say, I need several layers of multi-authentication, I have to use a micro-encapsulated web session every time we do it, it's going to get to the point where the user is saying, yeah, I'm safe, but I can't be productive. I'm spending so much time on security, this just doesn't work, and they will find ways around it, just like hackers find their way in. So let me look at, this is a slide, and I'm not going to cover all this, but I would like to highlight two things. One is when we do our design, we look at below the OS, in the OS, and above the OS. We're looking at device identity, data, kind of all of that. And all of these are part of our design features just built into our hardware. If you buy Elite product today and some of our, we're moving down the cost stack, you will get these devices built in. These aren't additional features. I'd like to share four of these before I close. Okay, so the can search one at the hardware level, one below, one in the OS, and one above the OS. And what I mean by that is you start at the hardware level at the base. If you can build something into the hardware itself, it's going to be the most secure. You can't get to it. It's below the OS. You can't even, malware and everything is just, there's no avenue in. And then the firmware and the BIOS, it's an ideal target because if I can get in there, I can attack your business and nobody will even know. Most common target, the OS, and then above the OS, that perimeter is what are my entry points into your organization or into your data? So let me talk about those see how fast I can do this. One is this security controller, and the idea is it's out of reach of the malware attacks. It's actually a chip built onto the board, separate from your CPU. That allows us to have a root of trust that says I can build all of my hardware enforcement, my self-healing, protect, detect, recover. I can manage it at a hardware level before anybody can get to it. It's also the baseline of 3 things that I'll share briefly and then close. One is what we call Sure Start. It's a self-healing BIOS with runtime detection. If something happens and you can't authenticate that you did it, your PC will shut down, go back to the original BIOS, and eliminate anything that's been changed beforehand. What that does is allows the antivirus, anti-malware, OS firewalls, all of that don't even apply. They haven't even started yet. This is all before your machine OS even starts to operate. Ideal target, protection at a BIOS level, self-healing. Second one is Sure Recover. If there's an attack or a ransomware that locks your device and you can't do anything with it, what do you do? Under this application, I can enable users or default to a system management tool to be able to re-image that device right from where you're sitting. It goes out to the internet, pulls, it's designed so it'll pull the latest image from HP or from your organization. I can re-image it. Or you can even do it scheduled. We have a hospitality company that they have so many hacks at their endpoint devices and point of sale that they actually store their data, re-image the device every morning, and then recover their data, and off they go. So they're secure. And then the last one I think is fun. It's called Sure View. How many of you have been in an airplane or coffee shop and somebody's over your shoulder, so you either put one of those plastic security panels on? What we've done is actually built that into the device, so if I push an F2, all of a sudden I have a narrow focus and everybody from outside of 30% can't even see my screen. So those are ways we're building in security right at the hardware level: protect, detect, and recover. And everything's a security device. So in closing, my comment, I think, from the beginning through the middle is think of security as an integral part of your design process when you think about digital transformation. Thank you. Oh, gracias.